Julie Andrews. The name alone brings a smile. Mary Poppins. Maria von Trapp. The embodiment of grace, elegance, and kindness. For decades, she's been the woman everyone loves. But there's a story she rarely tells. A story about the men who tried to destroy her before the world ever knew her name. These weren't strangers lurking in shadows. They were co-stars who shared her stage, executives who controlled her destiny. Even the man she married. They mocked her, undermined her. One threatened to burn down an entire Broadway production unless she was fired. And one man in particular made her life such a living nightmare that even 60 years later, she could barely speak his name without that famous smile fading just a little. So who was he? And why could Julie Andrews never truly forgive him? 1955. Broadway is preparing for something special. A musical adaptation of George Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion. The story of Eliza Doolittle, a flower girl transformed into a lady by an arrogant professor. They're calling it My Fair Lady. For the role of Professor Henry Higgins, the casting is obvious. Rex Harrison, already a celebrated film and stage actor, sophisticated, commanding, known for his razor-sharp wit and even sharper tongue. For Eliza, they take a gamble. A 19-year-old British performer named Julie Andrews, talented, yes, but relatively unknown, unproven, young. From the very first rehearsal at the Mark Hellinger Theater in New York, Rex Harrison makes his feelings brutally clear. Julie later describes her first impression of him: tall and thin, impeccably dressed, sophisticated with a clear sense of himself, definitely the center of attention. That last part is key. Rex Harrison is used to being the star, the focus, the reason people buy tickets, and he has absolutely no patience for a young actress he views as hopelessly out of her depth. After watching Julie struggle through a particularly difficult scene, Harrison storms off stage. He confronts the director and producers. His voice is cold. Absolutely. If that woman is here on Monday, he tells them, I'm quitting the show. The room goes silent. Here's their leading man, the name that will sell tickets, threatening to walk away because of the young woman they just cast. Julie isn't even present for this conversation, but word spreads quickly through the company. By the next morning, everyone knows Rex Harrison wants her gone, but Harrison isn't finished. He makes his position even clearer. He's making a stink about this silly little English girl who can't manage the role. If you don't get rid of her, he warns, you won't have a show. Imagine being 19 years old, an ocean away from home, working on the biggest opportunity of your life, and knowing that your celebrated co-star is actively campaigning for your removal. Julie could have quit. Many would have. Instead, she does something remarkable. She stays quiet, keeps her head down, works harder than anyone else in that theater. Director Moss Hart recognizes what Harrison cannot. Julie has something special. He also knows that replacing her at this stage would be nearly impossible. So he makes a decision that will change theater history. Both Harrison and Andrews will stay. Harrison will have to deal with it. The rehearsals that follow are tense, humiliating. Harrison barely speaks to Julie off stage. When he does address her during scenes, his tone drips with condescension. A stage manager from that production later recalls that Harrison would often finish a scene, turn to the wings and mutter just loud enough for Julie to hear "amateur hour." But something extraordinary begins to happen. As the weeks progress, Julie's performance deepens. Her Eliza is vulnerable, funny, heartbreaking, ultimately triumphant. During preview performances in New Haven and Philadelphia, audiences respond to her with thunderous applause. Critics begin to take notice. By the time My Fair Lady opens at the Mark Hellinger Theater on March 15, 1956, it's clear the show has two stars, not one. The New York Times raves about Julie's performance, calling her a genuine discovery. My Fair Lady becomes an instant phenomenon. It runs for over 6 years, 2,717 performances. Harrison and Andrews both win Tony Awards. The cast album becomes the best-selling LP of the 1950s. Together, despite Harrison's hostility, they've created one of the most successful musicals in Broadway history. But Harrison still can't bring himself to acknowledge her contribution. In interviews, he discusses the show's success in terms of his own performance. He barely mentions his co-star. At the Tony Awards ceremony, when Julie wins Best Actress in a Musical, Harrison offers a brief handshake, then immediately turns away. Their cold relationship might have remained a footnote in theater history, but then comes the moment that will define both their careers in very different ways. 1962. Warner Brothers announces they've acquired the film rights to My Fair Lady for a record-breaking $5.5 million. The movie will be directed by George Cukor. Massive budget, full prestige treatment. Everyone assumes Julie Andrews, who has played Eliza on Broadway for years and made the role iconic, will reprise it on screen. Then comes the announcement that shatters her world. Jack Warner, the head of Warner Brothers, cast Audrey Hepburn as Eliza Doolittle. Julie Andrews, the actress who literally originated the role and carried the show to historic success, isn't even considered. Warner's reasoning is coldly practical. Hepburn is an established movie star with multiple hit films. Andrews has never appeared in a motion picture. I need a name, Warner tells reporters. Andrews has no screen credit. I'd be taking a huge risk. But insiders suggest there's another factor at play. Rex Harrison has been cast to reprise his role as Henry Higgins. That was never in question, and according to multiple sources, Harrison makes it known that he prefers working with Audrey Hepburn, someone he knows socially, someone he considers a proper film actress, not a theater girl. A production assistant later claims that Harrison said during pre-production meetings, "Thank God they found someone with genuine elegance for Eliza. The film needs sophistication." Whether Harrison's influence is decisive or not, the result is devastating for Julie. She has given 6 years of her life to Eliza Doolittle, 8 shows a week, 6 days a week, year after year. She has made the role beloved around the world, and now she has to watch someone else play her part on the big screen. Julie handles the rejection publicly with characteristic grace. "I'm disappointed, naturally," she tells the press, "but I understand it's a business decision." Privately, according to her close friend Carol Burnett, Julie is crushed. Julie wept for days. Burnett later reveals she felt erased. The irony, of course, is that being passed over for My Fair Lady frees Julie to accept another role, one that will change everything. While My Fair Lady is in pre-production at Warner Brothers, Walt Disney is developing his own musical, Mary Poppins. Disney has seen Julie on Broadway and believes she's perfect for the magical nanny. When he learns she's been rejected for My Fair Lady, he immediately offers her the lead. Julie accepts. 1964. Both films are released within months of each other. The results are stunning. My Fair Lady is a critical and commercial success. It earns 8 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Actor for Rex Harrison, but there's widespread criticism of Audrey Hepburn's performance, particularly the fact that her singing voice has been dubbed. Hepburn isn't even nominated for Best Actress. Mary Poppins, meanwhile, becomes a cultural phenomenon. Julie Andrews' performance is universally praised as magical, warm, pitch-perfect. April 1965. The 37th Academy Awards. Julie Andrews wins the Oscar for Best Actress. In her acceptance speech, she can't resist a subtle dig. "I'd like to thank Jack Warner," she says, "for making all of this possible." The audience erupts in laughter and applause. Everyone understands exactly what she means. Rex Harrison wins Best Actor that same night for My Fair Lady. Backstage, photographers try to get a photo of the two stars together, both Oscar winners from the same property. Harrison poses stiffly for exactly one photograph. He refuses to make eye contact with Julie, then leaves immediately. That photograph captures everything about their relationship. Harrison in his tuxedo, looking away. Julie beaming with her Oscar. She has won, completely and undeniably, and he can't stand it. Over the decades that follow, Julie Andrews becomes one of the most beloved figures in entertainment. The Sound of Music in 1965 makes her even more iconic. She works steadily in film, television, and theater, earning respect and admiration wherever she goes. Rex Harrison continues his career as well, but his reputation as difficult and arrogant follows him everywhere. Multiple co-stars describe him as cruel and impossible to work with. When he dies in 1990, his obituaries note his considerable talent and his notorious temperament. Harrison never apologizes to Julie. Not once, in all those years. At industry events where they occasionally cross paths, they exchange only the briefest pleasantries. At the 1988 Tony Awards, both are in attendance to present awards. A producer suggests they present together as a My Fair Lady reunion. Both immediately decline. But Rex Harrison isn't the only man in Hollywood who tries to diminish Julie or make her career more difficult. The entertainment industry of the 1950s and 60s is controlled almost entirely by men, many of whom have very specific ideas about what a woman should be. The second man who complicates Julie's life in ways both professional and deeply personal is the man she eventually marries, Blake Edwards. When Julie meets director Blake Edwards in 1969, she's already a two-time Oscar nominee and one of the most recognizable faces in the world. Edwards is a talented filmmaker known for the Pink Panther series and Breakfast at Tiffany's. They fall in love quickly, marry later that same year. For 41 years, until Edwards' death in 2010, they remain together. From the outside, it looks like a Hollywood fairy tale. The elegant English actress and the brilliant American director collaborating on films and raising a blended family. But according to those close to the couple, the reality is far more complicated. Edwards adores Julie, but he also wants to control her career. He's frustrated by her wholesome image and believes she's capable of edgier, more adult material. According to Julie's daughter, Blake would often say, "The world sees you as Mary Poppins. I see the real you, the funny, complex, even dark woman underneath." This leads to a series of films in the 1980s where Edwards deliberately casts Julie against type. In a 1981 film, he has her bare her breasts on camera, a shocking moment designed to shatter her squeaky clean reputation. In Victor Victoria, she plays a woman pretending to be a man pretending to be a woman, a sexually ambiguous role that's leagues away from anything she's done before. Victor Victoria is critically acclaimed and earns Julie another Oscar nomination. But many of her longtime fans are confused. Even upset, Julie herself later admits in interviews that she has reservations about some of Blake's choices for her career, but she feels caught between supporting her husband's vision and protecting the image that has made her beloved. A crew member from a 1986 film later reports that Blake would sometimes speak for Julie in meetings, deciding which projects she should take without really asking her opinion. She'd sit there quietly nodding along, but you could see it bothered her. Friends like Carol Burnett noticed the dynamic as well. Blake loved Julie fiercely, Burnett says in an interview, but he also wanted to reshape her. "I think Julie spent a lot of their marriage trying to balance being his muse with being herself. Despite the control and the creative tensions, Julie remains devoted to Edwards throughout his battles with depression and chronic pain. When he dies in 2010, she's heartbroken. In interviews after his death, she speaks only of her love for him and gratitude for their life together. But in quieter moments, she also acknowledges the cost. "I gave up certain parts of myself to make our marriage work," she tells an interviewer. "I don't regret it, but I do recognize it now in a way I couldn't then." Another complicated male relationship in Julie's career is with Christopher Plummer, her co-star in The Sound of Music. Plummer, a serious Shakespearean actor, is initially horrified to be cast in what he considers a saccharine musical. He mockingly refers to the film as The Sound of Mucus and makes no secret of his disdain for the material. During filming in 1964, Plummer's attitude creates tension on set. While he's always professional with Julie, his constant complaints about the script and the songs make the experience less joyful than it might have been. Julie, who loves the role of Maria and believes in the film, feels his negativity is both unfair and exhausting. Christopher thought he was above it all. Julie later recalls, he couldn't see that something could be wholesome and still have artistic merit. Years later, Plummer admits he's been wrong. In his memoir, he writes that he was a pampered, arrogant young man who behaved foolishly. The film, of course, became one of the most beloved of all time, and Julie's performance was luminous. He should have shut up and been grateful. By the 2000s, Plummer and Julie have reconciled and become genuine friends. They reunite for a Sound of Music 40th anniversary special, where Plummer publicly apologizes for his behavior during filming. Julie graciously accepts. They remain close until Plummer's death in 2021. Unlike Rex Harrison, Christopher Plummer has the humility to admit his mistakes and the grace to seek forgiveness. Julie appreciates that deeply. And then there's Jack Warner, the executive who tells her she isn't enough. Warner's dismissal of Julie goes deeper than that single casting choice for My Fair Lady. According to biographers, Warner has been approached multiple times about casting Julie in other Warner Brothers projects in the early 1960s. Each time he rejects the idea with similar reasoning. She doesn't have the look. She's not glamorous enough. She's a theater actress, not a movie star. Warner represents a particular strain of old Hollywood thinking, that women need to fit a very specific mold of beauty and sophistication to succeed on screen. Julie Andrews, with her girl-next-door charm and clear, honest face, doesn't fit his narrow vision. What makes Warner's rejection particularly galling is that he's proven spectacularly wrong. Within 2 years of passing on Julie for My Fair Lady, she's become one of the biggest movie stars in the world, thanks to Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music. Both films are massive hits, far outgrossing most of Warner Brothers' releases from that period. Warner never apologizes. But he reportedly tells a colleague, "I may have made a mistake with the Andrews girl." It's as close to an admission of error as Jack Warner ever comes. For Julie, the lesson is clear. The men who control Hollywood often have no idea what audiences actually want, and their limitations say more about them than about her. Looking back across Julie Andrews' remarkable career, a pattern emerges. The men who try to diminish her, control her, or push her aside all share something in common. They're threatened by her talent, her independence, her refusal to fit into their narrow definitions of what a woman should be. Rex Harrison can't stand sharing the spotlight with a young actress who turns out to be just as talented as he is, if not more so. Jack Warner can't see past his outdated notions of movie star glamour. Blake Edwards loves her but still tries to reshape her into his own vision. Even Christopher Plummer initially dismisses her because he can't respect the warmth and joy she brings to her work. But here's what makes Julie Andrews' story so powerful. She outlasts all of them. She outlasts their doubts, their cruelty, their control, and their limited imaginations. She does it with grace, with dignity, and with an ironclad determination that's all the more powerful for being hidden beneath that perfect smile. Today, at 89 years old, Dame Julie Andrews is a beloved icon, celebrated not just for her talent but for her integrity and kindness. The Sound of Music and Mary Poppins remain two of the most cherished films ever made. Her performances have brought joy to literally billions of people across generations. Rex Harrison is remembered primarily for his difficult temperament. Jack Warner is a footnote in Hollywood history. Blake Edwards' best films are the ones he made with Julie. And Christopher Plummer admitted that fighting against The Sound of Music was the most foolish mistake of his career. Julie Andrews won. Completely, undeniably, permanently. In 2022, during an interview for a documentary about her life, she's asked if she harbors any bitterness toward the men who made her early career so difficult. She thinks for a long moment, then smiles. That famous, warm, utterly genuine Julie Andrews smile. "Bitterness is such a waste of time," she says quietly. "I learned very early that the best response to someone who doubts you is simply to prove them wrong, and then to move forward and never look back." Did Rex Harrison ever apologize? The interviewer presses. Julie's smile fades just slightly. "No," she says. "He never did. And I suppose that tells you everything you need to know about the man he was. She pauses, then adds something remarkable. But here's the lovely thing. I didn't need his apology to succeed. I didn't need his approval. I didn't need him to see my worth. I knew it myself. And eventually the world knew it too. That, perhaps, is the real story of Julie Andrews. Not the men who tried to break her, but the woman who refused to be broken. Not the ones who doubted her, but the star who proved them all magnificently, undeniably wrong.